essentially, here at the Center for the Restoration of Ma'at, we are focused on bringing these sacred guides, these principles, into our everyday lives, so that we are able to return to the grace that we once enjoyed in our incredible ancient African Kemetic Valley. Why should we be interested in the Kemetic aesthetic? Now, first off, let me say to you that when I use the word Kemetic, I'm referring to the word Kemet, which most individuals would call the Black Land. It's the actual description of the glyphs that our ancestors used to describe ancient Egypt. And as we say Kemet, there are those who say that the Black Land refers to the actual physical color of the soil in this wonderful land. And the soil was black due to the rich deposits left by the Nile, what we really should call the Hopi River, because certainly we were very hoppy when it inundated our land and left its rich soil. But there are also those who say that we called it the Black Land because we wanted to distinguish ourselves as a people of African descent in a region that was becoming more multi-ethnic, more multicultural every day. Of course, as we look at the United States today, we see a multiplicity of ethnicities. And that's simply because this country has enjoyed great wealth and great prosperity, so individuals from all over the world come to the United States. Kemet was a similar society. People traveled from all over the world to be able to study, to be able to practice, to be able to have their businesses prosper in ancient Egypt. So there are those who say, and certainly I'm not one to rule them out, but there are those who say that the word Kemet actually refers to the ethnic derivation of the ancient Egyptians. So as I say, why should we be interested in the symbols of ancient Egypt? There are simple reasons that we can think about why this is important. First of all, the Kemetic civilization is the source material for world civilization. Often we're hearing today that Iraq is the cradle of civilization. Certainly, Iraq is of note in world history. But as we look at literature, as we look at mathematics, as we look at spirituality, as we look at architecture, as we look at engineering, certainly there were no early civilizations which paralleled ancient Egypt. And as we look at what many people would like to call Western civilization today, many of the most powerful ideals of Western civilization come directly out of Kemet. So let's be clear, brothers and sisters. They don't want you to understand that our understanding, our sacred aesthetic, our understanding of the world is the basis for Western civilization. So as I say that the Kemetic civilization is the source material for world civilization, you have to understand that understanding, identifying, reclaiming that which is ancient Egypt, reclaiming as Africans that which is ancient Egypt, actually places us at the forefront of world civilization. Now there are those that would like you to believe that there's only one Madonna, and that's Mary, and she suckles Jesus. But of course, as you travel around the world, you will actually see images of a European woman suckling a black child. In fact, I believe Ian Begg was an author that wrote a book called, I know the title was Black Madonna, but definitely this is a really curious reality that we see around the world. And it is actually a nod to the fact that this symbol comes from you. It's something that you devised first. As we look at this Black Madonna, let's look at one of the images in particular. Now, the image in the middle here is one that I took in the Nubian Museum here. And this image is actually of a statue that is in the Brooklyn Museum here in New York. If you don't believe me, go see it. Okay, it's in the Brooklyn Museum. Now, obviously the Black Madonna, or this Madonna image, is one of the most important images in our understanding of the world. But why? Why is it one of the most important images in our understanding of the world? As we look at a mother suckling a child, we would see a naturalistic pose, like this beautiful sister in East Africa here, suckling her child. See her face, she looks like she's at peace, and the child is certainly saying, I'm hungry, Mom, thanks for feeding me. It's a beautiful image of a sister giving sustenance to her child. That's usually how you would see a child suckling from their mother. They'd be cradled, and they'd be suckling, right? We see images of the Black Madonna. Now, let's look at this one of this incredible African ruler, Pepi II, with his queen, Anksen Pepi II. With his mother, Queen Anksen Pepi II. Now, instead of a naturalistic pose, instead of seeing him cradled by his mother in a really comfortable position and suckling on her breast, we see him sitting on her lap. And in fact, he's sitting at a 90-degree angle to his mother. Now, the 90 degrees we'll talk about in another lecture on numerology, but you'll see him sitting at 90 degrees to his mother. And in fact, when I looked at this statue, I initially said, something is really unusual about this statue, because Pepi II isn't even a child in this image. He's just a small man. He's even wearing the Nemes cloth, the cloth of a great African ruler. He's a small man on his larger mother's lap. And then another thing that made me think that it was really strange is he was sitting, once again, at a 90-degree angle. He was sitting upright like he was sitting on a throne. And to really drive it home, he even, similar to his mother, has a footrest that a king would have at the bottom of his feet. Now I said to myself, this image is saying something quite different than what we usually would say that it means. It's not simply him sitting on his mother's lap and suckling, but it's saying something actually very profound. It's saying that his mother is the throne, that he can only reach his divine potential through an African woman, through his mother. Now, sometimes when I say that, people say, well, okay, you believe that? Prove it. Let's look at symbolism of motherhood once again. Now, here we see a beautiful Christian, but certainly another image of the Black Madonna. And as we look at the archetype for the Black Madonna, Ast, who was the great mother, the great queen to Asar, and the mother to Heru, we will see that she has a very curious symbol on top of her head. Now, she's depicted in several different ways often, but one of the symbols you'll see on her head is a throne. You will see a throne on top of her head. And in fact, in her name, you will see a throne. Now, once again, they'll say this is a landmass. They'll say that that's a loaf of bread. And you see an image of her. This is her name in glyphs. Now, if you had to use your third eye, your inner soul, to understand what they were saying about our great mother Ast, you would say, this is a great lady who is very fertile, because I will still tell you that I believe that that is the breast, because it is the feminine principle here, and a throne. This great lady is the throne. She is the one that has the throne on her head. So Ast is the great mother who signifies the throne. You can only be divine, you can only be a ruler, you can only reach your greatest potential through an African woman. Now let's look back at that image one more time. Now look at Pepi. Once again, he's sitting at a 90-degree angle. He is not sitting like a child, but he's sitting on his mother's lap, and it looks like he's sitting on the throne. Do you see this now? Do you see how he's sitting at a 90-degree angle like his mother is the throne with a footrest? That is how we use symbolism to give a deeper understanding of the way that we looked at the world, a deeper understanding on the way that we should live and operate with each other. Clearly, Pepi would not have called his mother a bee or a hoe. Clearly he wouldn't have, because he's saying how important his mother is here.